Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, Jessica is back on the show with me. We're going to do a little Krista and Jess show. So this should be a fun one. Right now, behind the scenes, we are in the middle of our CSOO certification program. And what we're working on with folks right now is operational efficiency. And so we thought, what a great topic to be talking about at this time of the year, because things are off to a little bit of an interesting start for the year for sure. Some people are really getting traction, but I find most people aren't. And so there's a few different things going on where people are looking at, how can I generate revenue in the business? How can I bring in more clients? And that's great. Absolutely, that should always be a focus. But at the same time, there is a whole lot of money, usually, and time being spent on things that do not need to be spent. And there's often profit that you can recover right away in your business. And so this is what we are literally teaching people inside the certification program how to do. So we thought we would go through a few of the highlights with you today, so you could look at in your own business where you may have something that's standing in the way of running more simply, running more sustainably, and certainly something that's standing in the way of you having more profit in the business as well as more time. So Jess, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you have probably heard me talk about the 10 areas of waste before. If you are new to the show, I'm going to recap, and so you won't miss anything, but check the show notes and check out some of the episodes where we've dove into this in the past. So for anyone who has a background in lean or familiarity with lean, areas of waste are something that almost every large scale company in the world addresses all the time. This is something that first came out of manufacturing. Then there's a version of areas of waste for software development. And I've identified my own version of areas of waste that I see most commonly in smaller service based businesses, coaching businesses, consulting businesses. Those of us who have an online digital presence, especially, have something a little bit different than a lot of the larger businesses do. But the one thing that is true, it does not matter the size, the scale, the type, the industry, no matter what it is, if you have a business, you have waste in your business. And why that's important is wasted time, it's wasted money, it's wasted energy. It is anything that is not taking you closer to the goals that you have for the business. It's not taking you closer to the profit targets that you have for the business, and it's not taking you closer to the impact that you're trying to make in your business. So to me, one of the number one things that you can do in your business is lean out all of the waste that exists. So I'm going to do a real quick run through of the 10 areas of waste, and then we're going to dive into a few of the ones that we see pretty commonly. So the very first one is not going to surprise you at all, and that is unnecessary complexity. I have yet to meet a business that does not have unnecessary complexity in some way, shape, or form. I always joke that we run a really lean business. I mean, the business is literally lean out method. We run a super lean business, and we still have waste and complexity in our business that we are consistently and routinely trying to look at. How can we lean things out? How can we make this simpler? It is a side effect of growth. It is a side effect of simply running a business in this wild, wacky world that we have going on where things change every 5 seconds. There's always a new tool, there's always a new platform, there's team member changes, there's new ideas because we're visionaries. You name it all. There is no shortage of opportunity for unnecessary complexity. Jess, would you agree that that's one of the ones that really kind of takes the stage?
Yes, yes, it is. Especially like consistent across the board with all of my clients. So yes.
Absolutely. Yep. And again, no matter how lean your business is, no matter how not lean your business may be, which is a lot of the ones that we work with. That being said, there's unnecessary complexity in some way, shape, or form. And what is super efficient and super optimized today will be complex tomorrow without that continuous refinement and continuous improvement around that, because that's just kind of the nature of how things go. But that is certainly not the only one that is very prevalent in a business. And one of the next ones, I'm going to actually combine two together here. One is incomplete work and one is unneeded work. They sound kind of similar, but different root causes and they show up in different ways. So, unneeded work, I'm going to start with, is where you end up investing time in things that are not necessary at all. Now, that sounds kind of self explanatory on the surface, right? Nobody wants to invest time or money or anything in something that's not needed. But when you don't have really good planning practices in place, when you're not really clear on what's needed and what's needed when, it's very easy to spend time on things that you think are going to generate results and are never going to take you where you want to go. If you don't have systems in place, if you don't leverage automations, or really if you haven't been leveraging AI and some of the incredible capabilities it's giving within the business, that's work that somebody is doing that did not need to be done at all because it could have been automated, it could have been systematized. But some of the other places that this shows up, and I'm seeing this so much really relevant this year, is a lot of the content and a lot of the things that you have in your products, in your offers. If you have any sort of online program or any sort of training or knowledge based component to the work that you're doing, how many of those features or how many of the things that you've included do people actually use? If they're not using it, that is unneeded work. That is time you spent invested in creating it, in putting it out there, in probably emailing or talking about it, and then in maintaining it, which we'll talk about in one of the other areas of waste. So, unneeded work is one of those sneaky ones that shows up a lot. And the problem with unneeded work, if you don't, again, have a clear planning practice in place, or if you don't have really good systems, is you only know it was unneeded work after the fact. When you are proactive with how you approach things, you can tell that it was unneeded work up front and save yourself the time, money, and energy investment. But incomplete work, this one is one that I find is common across all types of business, but so common in a small business. Super common in a small business. And the more the founder of the business is of the visionary variety, and the closer they are to the actual work that gets done, like a smaller team where the founder is very involved, the more incomplete work that that business sees, because founders have what I call visionary-itis, which is the brilliant ability to come up with new ideas all of the time, to be naturally very innovative and naturally very creative. Side effect of that is that they always want to focus on innovation, creation, all of those things, and their strength is not always in the implementation side of it. It's certainly not always in the maintaining of the things that are implemented side, which takes us to one more area of waste. And then, Jess, I want you to weigh in on a few of these because I know you see these a lot too. But the other area of waste that's a close cousin to that one is new versus optimization. So, small businesses, again, especially those led by visionary founders, tend to really focus on and thrive on putting new things out into the world. You've probably heard me talk about, the risk of new. New is actually the slowest and most risky path to scale your business. But what you really want to be doing in your business is finding the few things that work really well and optimizing them. And that can feel incredibly boring. Like a really successful, scalable business is a business that's stable and a business that feels kind of boring. And that is sometimes the scariest place because that is when the visionary types get a little itchy and they start looking around and start being like, all right, what can I do? And start injecting a lot of change and a lot of new into the business. And certainly, if you look at a lot of the drivers in the market, a lot of what you see when you're on social media, a lot of what you probably hear in the groups that you're in is everyone's always talking about this new thing. Oh, have you tried this new platform? Have you tried this new tool? Have you launched in this new way? Have you put out this new type of offer? And so there is no shortage of pressure to do new, combined with a visionary's natural tendency to want to do new. And that ends up leading to a fairly inefficient and unoptimized business where you're leaving a ton of profit on the table and you are frequently wasting a lot of money on things that become incomplete work because things get started and never finished. So those kind of all fit together. And certainly all of that leads to more unnecessary complexity. So, Jess, tell me what you
Yes.
see in this because I mean, I don't think there's a business I work with that I don't see some flavor of this.
Exactly. Even hearing you, because it's like it's familiar to me, but hearing it's like I imagine just these four visual puzzle pieces, and all of these fit together, and because they all just intersect. And so just some of the things that you were mentioning, even just thinking about like the unneeded work that takes away from your ability to optimize the systems and processes that you have in place. So it's like those automatically connect. And then there's that, do we need something new because something's not working? But the unneeded work is taking away from your ability to actually optimize and focus and do things in a systematic way to where you get to the routine, to where you're starting to have a fluid system that's working, and then you're able to say, okay, well, it does work if we don't invest that time into the unneeded work. And so it's interesting how they all intersect, and how it's like, okay, so many of these components overlap in ways to where that influence is significant. And it was whenever you were talking about that, this is a phrase that my dad taught me growing up. It's like, no news is good news. But I do believe that, especially with society and that there's so much going on, we're almost like, okay, if I have nothing to do, if I feel like I'm caught up, I feel like I'm not doing something right, or there's something that I could be doing. And so it's really would feel so refreshing to get to the point to where it's like having that ability to kind of unwind because you've taken care of the waste, and you're able to just enjoy and bask in the cleanliness of your business, so to speak. It goes a long way of like, okay, we're doing something right. Now we're in a more optimal level to where it's like things are becoming fluid, and you're not having to fix certain things or have to constantly be in that ideation mode. So it's interesting that that almost feels foreign right now, and how people are navigating through that.
It's so true. And I'm going to take a slight diversion and talk about this for a moment, and then we'll dive into the other areas of waste, because I work with visionaries at different stage of their journey. And I think the hardest part for anyone, the hardest transition, the hardest identity evolution I think a founder makes is when their business doesn't need them anymore. And I say that because it's what everybody wants, right? I mean, this is literally what I help so many businesses do, is get the founder out of the day to day. And when you are a founder who is crushed by tons of decisions, everything being dependent on you, running around and working so hard and so much all the time and feeling like you can't take a break, it is what you dream of. You dream of getting yourself out of the day to day, and you're like, please, please get me out of the day to day, right? And that's what we do with people in Ops Alchemy, is we help them make that transition. But as soon as that transition is made, you don't know what to do with yourself. You completely do not know what to do with yourself. It is such a strange feeling. You're like, wait a minute, they don't need me? What, how could they not need me? You start to question your identity. Like, am I still important to this business? Do I still matter? You don't know what to do with your time. Like, you enjoy it for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're like, I need to be doing something, because you're so conditioned to work, 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 and react, 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 that you almost don't know what to do with the freedom in the space in the time. It takes a true identity evolution to move into a different type of leadership of your business. It's not just that you get more time back, it's like a really big personal change in how you show up in your business and think about your role in the business. Do you find that as
Right.
well, Jess?
I do, and I agree with that. The one of the most interesting things is I always hear, I want to be out of the day-to-day operations, but they rarely communicate what does that, like, what that looks like. So even when I ask, okay, what does that look like for you? Because that allows me to help support and create the strategy. But then every time I ask that question, it's like, I don't know. And so it's really, they know what they don't want. They know that they don't want the burnout. They know that they don't want to be impacted by the stress. But that's honestly a lot of the areas of waste that could be eliminated. So they find out that the business itself is not the issue, it's the waste that's surrounding the business.
Yeah, it's true. And if you find yourself in that place where you're like, I have no idea what to do with myself, I've actually got the operationally efficient business that I've always wanted, call me. That is when I work with people privately, because it's a very private type of experience, because it does look totally different for everyone. And to your point, a lot of times I'm helping them discover truly what a rich, fulfilled life means to them, because it's just this like abstract concept when they're buried in the day to day and they just want out. To your point, they know what they don't want anymore, but they've never really taken the time to look at or accept or even really dream about what they do want because it feels so far away.
Right, exactly.
So anyway, slight diversion there. But that being said, if you want to get out of the day-to-day of your business, Ops Alchemy is the way to go. And if you are out of the day-to-day of your business and saying, what on earth do I do with myself? Give me a call and we will look at that together. But let's keep on trucking here and going through the rest of these. So we've talked about unnecessary complexity. We've talked about unneeded work and incomplete work. We've talked about new versus optimization. Well, a few of the others that show up, and this one is surprisingly a really big killer of productivity and time, is searching. So I want you to think for a moment about your week. How many times do you answer the question from a client or from a team member or for yourself, where the blankety blank is this? Where's the document? Where's the link? Where's the thing? Why can't I find this? Wait a minute. I thought that it looked like this. Didn't I update this? Where's the most up to date version of this? Think about how much time you probably spend in a week searching or being frustrated because you cannot find something, or because your team has asked you something for the 87th time because they cannot find something. And as a small business, because we have such a large digital presence, we create, if you think about the amount of content that you create for social media, if you're active on social media, if you have a podcast, if you have a blog, if you have your website, if you do any sort of speaking engagements, right? Just think about the number of assets, presentations, graphics, images, videos, just the things that you have in your business, even just your logo and your brand kit and things of that nature, your media kit, if you do speaking or podcast guesting. There is so much information, knowledge, documentation, and assets that most businesses do a fairly poor job of organizing, and that makes things really challenging to find. Add in new team members, people needing new access to things, and all of a sudden it can just get chaotic. Somebody leaves and nobody knows how to access or find anything. I still, and this one makes me cringe so badly, but I still talk to business owners who share real passwords with people and do not have a password management tool. That one like makes my skin crawl a little. So if you don't have a password management tool, pause this episode immediately and go get one.
Now.
We use LastPass. A lot of my clients use 1Password. There are plenty of others, lots of great tools out there. Don't care which one you use, just make sure you have one. Please do not ever give someone your password. I had a conversation with someone the other day saying, yeah, this person wants access to things, and I'm just not comfortable giving them my password because I use the same password for my business that I use personally. And I was like, there's so many red flags going off in my brain right now. Like, there's so many things that I want to say. Like,
Seriously.
A, don't use the same password for everything. B, why are you giving someone your password? So anyway, searching is such a huge, huge area of waste in a small business. And it sounds like such a little thing that people overlook it. And even when I describe it to them, they kind of dismiss it a little bit. And they're like, yeah, it's annoying, but whatever. But I'm going to say right now, think about how precious your time is. Think about how rarely you get a real block of time where you could heads down focus on something meaningful in the business. Instead of just doing a whole bunch of little things, you actually have a time for creation, innovation, ideation, for being able to move the business forward, for being in the space of true visionary and visionary leadership, right? Those times are very precious and they frequently are not that often. Well, even if somebody just pops in for a quick question as to where is that thing, I don't know about you, but that derails my focus big time. It's not just that it took me 5 minutes to send them the link, it's that I broke my focus. I got pulled out of that time that was so important for me to get done what I need to as the visionary of the business. And if you think, well, oh, I don't do that anymore, they just ask my right hand or they just ask so and so, well, then you've transferred that disruption to them. So it might be that you aren't interrupted anymore, but they are, and they are far less productive as a result. And so searching is one of those ones that is easy to solve for, harder to get people to stick to the solve for, but very impactful if you don't have a solid document management process or information management process, if you don't have solid naming conventions, if you don't have directions on here's how and where you save things and how and where you access things, and here's what's okay to share and what's not. That sort of stuff is really, really critical. Would you agree, Jess, that that is one of those like silent killers of productivity?
Yes, it's to me it's threefold because it impacts the morale of the team overall, because then the confidence starts to diminish because there's this dependency that's created on the team, on the visionary or whomever it gets transferred to. Then it's also the let's just say the visionary, whoever they're seeking the information from, because you have that constant context switching. And then it's just the overall culture within the organization of things feel scattered. They feel all over the place. They don't feel organized. And so it's like that to me is much deeper, because then that those are the issues that take a lot of energy and intentionality to actually reverse. And then once you start to program and condition your team members to accept that behavior, when you want to actually shift it and be more productive and intentional and have more efficiency, it's harder to unlearn that behavior than it is to allow it to just cultivate within the organization. So it gets deep. So I definitely agree, and to see how important it is to, even though it's something as simple as just searching, the time that you spend searching, it's that in addition to all of the impact that it has.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, you know, to kind of extend based on what you were saying, one of the next areas of waste is fragmentation. And so that feeling of things being all over the place when you're searching for something, as we talk about documents and information, is one thing. But think about in your business how much fragmentation there actually is, versus, to go back to the puzzle piece analogy that you had used, like, do all the pieces of your puzzle fit together? Or do you have some random picture? You've got like pieces from 18 different puzzles in there. Nothing fits together. You've got missing pieces. You've got bonus pieces. There is no way you're building this puzzle, right? And I find that's the case in a lot of businesses. You've got the vision. The vision is the picture. But things are so fragmented that you cannot pull things together. You've got this program from this guru over here. You've got this one from that person over there. You've got this tool that you use one out of 35 features of. Meanwhile, you have other tools that do the exact same thing and you only use one different feature on those. And so by the time you look at everything in your business, things end up very fragmented. There is no kind of centralized holistic solution for how you run things, for how your client experiences the work that they do with you, for how your team does what they need to do. And that can create a lot of unnecessary complexity. It can lead to a lot of the other areas of waste.
Agree completely, especially with the if you have a team that like that focuses in different areas and departments, so to speak, it's how do you bring those silos in a sense together? And I think that a lot gets lost in like translation, and then you lose that kind of cohesive communication unless you're very intentional about coming together and communicating about it consistently, because it's easy just to go off and do your own thing, complete your activities and your tasks, but then it's like, okay, where's the continuity? How does this all align with the greater goal and the bigger picture?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I talk about a lot on the podcast, and again, this is a great episode to go back and listen to, is marketing versus ops, right? A lot of people are always trying to make that trade off of should I invest in marketing or should I invest in operations? And it's not an or, it's an and. You need to consistently be investing in both. But what I find is people tend to look at them as two different things. And because they look at them as two different things, that creates a ton of fragmentation in the business. They do not get fully integrated together into one cohesive solution.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, well, let's just keep on going here with poor quality. I feel like I'm on like, and the next contestant is,
Right.
but the next one is poor quality. And nobody wants poor quality, of course. We all strive to do our very best. We all strive to deliver a really incredible, high value experience for our clients. We want our team members to have good experiences. No business, well, I shouldn't say no, none of the businesses I tend to work with go out into the world intending for poor quality. But it is a side effect of trying to do too many darn things at once. It's a side effect of context switching, of everyone being really burnt out, of everyone working way too much. And this could be as simple as the links on your website not working. I had someone apply to be on the podcast at one point, and I'm pretty sure she was like an operational efficiency expert, if I'm right. And so I went to her website. All of her links were broken. The links in her main nav were broken. The links in her footer were broken. I looked at the date at the bottom of her website and it was last updated in 2021. And I was like, I would not believe for a second that you were a legit business if you had not just applied to be on my podcast. Needless to say, she will not be joining me on the show. But this is really common. Like, how often do things not work within your site? And how often are you proactively doing those checks and balances to make sure that everything end to end, from a client experience perspective, from a new lead perspective, from how you run your business perspective, from the things that you're actually putting out into the world, whether it be your programs, your content, how often are you looking at those to make sure that they are of the highest quality possible and that there are no gaps within them?
Right. And some of the difference between actually having poor quality and exceptional quality could be 30 seconds. And it's literally reading through an email prior to sending it and clicking every single link and making sure that it works properly so that you're putting yourself in the seat of the receiver to ensure that it works properly, because that one catch could maybe be the difference between you actually acquiring a new client or losing one. And so that's so critical, but it's literally 30 seconds, just slowing down enough to be able to proofread an email.
My gosh, that makes me think of this story. I was consulting at this company and they were called Babson. And somebody sent in a proposal, and this was like a multi-million dollar proposal. So this company was probably hanging their hat on us accepting their proposal. We were reviewing different, bids and stuff from people, and they clearly did not double check it because Babson auto corrected to Baboon, and they literally sent the proposal to Baboon Capital. And throughout the entire proposal, it used the word baboon. And so, needless to say, we did not select them to be our vendor. And that was a million something dollar contract to start that became a multi-million dollar contract after years. And they missed out on that. And to this day, they probably don't know why. If you are listening and you were the person who submitted that contract, it's because you did not read the proposal that you put through spell check.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's obviously a very egregious example of it, but little things like that happen all the time. And there is something that we do internally within Lean Out Method and within Strategic Ops Institute. I talked about this a couple podcast episodes ago, but we don't let someone consider something done or mark something as complete unless it's been tested and validated. So we have found over the years that if we don't put that as a explicit requirement, people will be like, did that, move on, did that, move on. And they forget that critical piece that Jess mentioned, like checking that the links in the email actually take you where they're supposed to go and things of that nature. And
Right.
even with that, we still find issues, right? We're not perfect. We find them all the time, but we are putting practices in place always to try to increase minimization of poor quality, and highly encourage you to do the same.
Exactly. And the thing is that no matter how often you've completed a task or an activity, it's like consistently doing it, because the one time you don't is where you'll have that conversation of did you check everything, and then if your answer is no, more than likely that's the one time that it's going to slip through. And so just to be able to maintain that confidence within your team to where like it's nice to be able to know that, okay, if Krista sends something or whomever, it's like at least I don't have to wonder, did they do that part? Because that's another component of just building trust and knowing that that's going to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'll say one more thing on this and then we'll move to the next one. Is one of my themes this year. I shared what my overarching theme was a couple episodes ago, but one of them is closing the tabs. Literally on my computer, I have far too many tabs open, but in my brain, there are always tabs open. And knowing that somebody is going to validate and test their work before marking it complete lets me close a tab. Wondering if someone validated or checked their work before they considered it complete, so there might be issues out there, keeps all the tabs open. So if you are one of those people like me who kind of always keeps the tab open in your brain until you have confidence for sure that something's done right, put that practice in place and it will help you close the tabs.
Exactly.
All right. So moving on to a cousin again of this is underutilized resources. So resources in this scenario are all types of resources. So yes, there's the people on your team, but it's also your time resources, your financial resources, your energy, right? And so this is making sure that you are effectively utilizing the resources available to you in the business. This is something where I shared the behind the scenes of what we're doing internally as a team, and how every year I always have people look at their skills and assess which ones align with their zone of genius, which ones don't, where do they want to change things. That's a view of better utilizing your resources. It's where, what are someone's actual strengths, and do I have them aligned to the things that they are strongest at? Are they aligned to the things that they want to do and that they do best? That's an example of it, not just looking at are they actually spending their time on the right things, which is also a key piece of it. Financially, right? Are you spending money on things that you are not using at all? When we talked about that tool example, you've got, a tool that has 87 pieces of functionality and you're using one, but then you've got multiple other tools with the same functionality, right? Are you using the features and the functionality available to you, especially some of the AI and automation capabilities within the tools that you already have in your business? Or B, are you paying for a whole bunch of tools that either aren't used at all or that do the exact same things as one of the other tools? So there is a lot that you could do with underutilized resources. This is one of the areas I'm usually able to recover a bunch of time and money within a business very quickly.
Agreed. And then just the one little tidbit that comes to mind for me is that underutilized resources often contribute to the searching. Because if you have an additional tool or that you may not need or you're not utilizing, it's one less thing to where if you're able to eliminate it or optimize the use of it, it could impact that searching as well.
Absolutely. All right. And that takes us to yet another one that is not talked about too often, but that I think is a big issue in small business, in particular in online business, and that is what I call knowledge depreciation. So, knowledge depreciates over time. Everything that we do in business, for the most part, tends to depreciate over time. There's some things that depreciate, but we'll just go with the depreciation lens for right now. Well, when you think about that course that somebody put on sale that's the best deal ever, and you don't need it right now, but you're going to buy it right now anyway, just because it's on special and you don't get to it for 6 months or a year, is the data still valid? A lot of times it's not. You hire somebody new to your team and you're like, first 2 weeks, I want you to learn everything you possibly can about the company. I want you to go through every single page on the playbook. I want you to watch every single video we've ever done. I want you to do this immersive into all the things. And then I expect you to remember all of it and know everything, even though you're not going to do that thing that I just trained you on for another 6 months. Businesses do this all the time and then they get frustrated. I sent them for training. They learned everything they needed to learn about the business. I don't understand why they don't know how to do their job. And it's like, but did they do it just in time? Did they learn it and then apply it? Or did they learn it amidst 400,000 other things that they learned, none of which they applied right away?
Exactly.
And this happens all the time, and businesses do it with the best of intentions, right? It's like they barely train somebody. They would just throw them in and like expect them to figure things out. And so then they swing the pendulum in the other way and they develop this beautiful playbook and they develop these onboarding things. And they're like, okay, I'm going to properly onboard them. And by doing it, I'm going to have them learn all these things they are not going to apply for the longest time, right? Not a good use of anyone's resources. You're much better having people come in, learn, do, learn, do, learn, do.
Yeah.
But this also relates to the information in your programs. So if you have course material, maybe you sell courses, maybe you do a program or a product that has content within it. How often are you refreshing that content? because that content knowledge does depreciate. And I will tell you now, part of my decision to not continue offering Simplify to Scale in the way that I have, even though I've done this for so long now, A, I changed it over to Ops Alchemy. But B, it's because with AI, a lot of the ways that I would have taught people to do things in the past are different now. I am going to get someone better results by teaching them how to use AI to do it instead of teaching them how to do it. And so it was me looking at that knowledge and saying the knowledge is still valid. Anybody could go off and do whatever they needed to and Simplify to Scale. But the reality is there's a better way to do it now. I would much rather teach you how to use an AI tool, because then you could take that knowledge and apply it to other things outside of that one thing instead of telling you specifically how to do it or giving you a template. I'd rather teach you how to have AI create a template for you. And so I pulled that intentionally because I know that I need to do, or I didn't need to, I shouldn't say the word need to, I wanted to do a really big refresh of the content so that it fits more with directionally where I see the world working, as opposed to the way that things used to work. And so, where in your own stuff do you need to refresh things? And do you have a regular cadence when you do your planning, when you look ahead at the year? Do you have regular points in time where you are refreshing your content?
Exactly. Like that's the you were spot on with that one. So yeah, all of that.
And I will tell you right now, I will say, after working with, I can't even tell you how many hundreds or thousands of businesses over these years, most people do not have that planned, and it ends up being a reactionary kind of thing where they wait until there's so much complaint or so many people asking for refunds or something, or saying this isn't even valid anymore, why aren't you doing this? They wait until the client almost demand it before going in and doing it, and then it becomes a disruptive, quick, pull it together project, and really it should be something that's done proactively on a regular cadence.
Agreed.
And final, last but not least, area of waste and thing that you want to minimize for operational efficiency are delays. Delays, delays, delays. In a small business, there are a lot of delays. They build up. But the one thing about delays that I wanted to point out is, again, this is another one of those kind of sneaky areas. So you meant to launch your program in Q1, you launch it in Q2. There were a series of things that happened, probably a series of things that happened caused by a whole bunch of those other areas of waste and things that we've already talked about. And so you launch it a few months later than you planned. No big deal. Or is it? Because those 3 months that you could have been live, that's 3 months of revenue that you could have been bringing in. That's 3 months of new clients that could have been referring other clients. That's 3 months of customer lifetime value that you're not building up over time. And so a lot of times it's like, "Oh, that slipped by a couple weeks here, that slipped by a day there, that slipped by a month there, that slipped by a quarter there." No big deal, small business, right? We're super adaptable. Yes, and there should be a lot of intentionality around what moves and how it moves, because delays are expensive. Delays are costly. They delay value for your client, they delay revenue for your business. They sometimes impact how people trust your brand and look at your brand, and if you actually deliver on what you promise, if they can rely on you to do what you say you will when you will. So delays are another really big area of waste that are important to pay attention to.
Agreed. And delays can also be expensive to the point where I think one of my biggest pet peeves, just as an individual, even working with the team, can be now some delays are unforeseen and you can't control them. That's understandable. But for the ones that you can, a task or an activity that should take you about 15 to 30 minutes ends up taking 2 days or so because there's too many transfer of information necessary and too many people having to be involved. That impacts significantly. Thus, you're increasing your expenses just because you're paying a team member to have to do something or investigate and do certain things. So it's one of those, they can be costly in other ways too.
Yeah, and delays and knowledge depreciation kind of fit together in that way, where a lot of times what I'll see is people plan something too far in advance. It's not just that somebody learns something before they're going to apply it. Somebody will go into great detail and plan something before they intend to start it. And that will end up causing a whole bunch of delays, because by the time you get to do it, that knowledge is depreciated so much. The scope of what you needed looks different. Things are different. And so it ends up then causing a bunch of rework, and it ends up usually causing delays for things to either start or finish. So
Right.
as we've talked about, each one of these feeds into the others. You turn the dial on one and it creates an impact on the rest of them. They kind of are a self feeding machine of inefficiency in your business, which is the opposite. We want a self feeding machine of efficiency in the business. And if you want to dig a little bit deeper into these and some of the things that you can do about it, we actually have a free guide. It's a waste guide. You can head to leanoutmethod.com/waste. This will walk you through everything that I've just talked you through in this episode, as well as some recommendations and actions that you can take for each one of them. But if you do want to get yourself out of the day to day, right, getting rid of operational inefficiency is one of the core ways that you can do it. It is really challenging to get yourself out of the day to day and maintain a successful business if you have a high degree of waste. You will never have a waste free business, but you should be in a place where waste is significantly minimized and you have practices and things in place that naturally keep that focus on operational efficiency.
Agreed.
All right, that's what we got for you this week. I hope you got a lot of value out of this episode. As I shared, if you would like any support in getting yourself out of the day to day, increasing your operational efficiency, there's a few different things that you can do. For yourself, you can go over to Ops Alchemy, which is leanoutmethod.com/Ops Alchemy. That is the new and revised version of Simplify to Scale with a lot of the AI prompting and things in it to help prepare you for what you really need to be doing, not just this year, but going into the future. And if you would rather get certified in this, if you'd rather learn how to go into businesses yourself and help them be more operationally efficient, that is what we are literally doing right now within the CSOO certification. So head to strategicopsinstitute.com/CSOO. That is really for anyone who works with small businesses and wants to help them scale in simple, sustainable ways. You get access to our entire lean scaling system, including the 10 areas of waste and what we help businesses do to eliminate them. So thank you again. We will see you again next week. Jess, thanks for being here.
Of course.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. If you have not yet taken our scalability assessment, I invite you to head to leanoutmethod.com/assessment and take our interactive assessment that's going to help you look at how simple, how sustainable, and how scalable your business currently is. It includes personalized recommendations of where to focus next to get your time back, to increase your impact, increase your profits, and ultimately step into your rich, fulfilled life. And finally, we'd love to see you inside our signature program, Simplify to Scale. You can head to leanoutmethod.com/ops to find all of the details on how we can help you uplevel your operations and get out of the day-to-day of your business.